In these videos, I'm going to make this little pocket album. So I'm going to start by making the pages. There are 6 pages inside, 6 pocket pages, and you need a total of 4 sheets of cardstock to form the pages. I'm going to use a combination of orange and brown cardstock. I get this from Recollections in packs of 50 when they're on sale, so it's a good deal. So you can download the measurements for all the pieces from my website, and the link is indicated below. So let's start by forming these 6 little pages. Now the pockets are made by combining 2 sheets of cardstock together, and I've got my front pieces cut, or my back, it doesn't matter, it can be either one, and then the other section that these attach to, and I can get 3 on one page. So those are cut at 6.5 by 4. Now I can get 3 out of this page if I position my paper like this, and I cut 6.5, and then I make them 4 inches wide. And then this one, also I'm going to cut 6.5 inches and 4 inches wide. So I'm going to make these my front pieces. Okay, so I'm going to keep my scraps. Next, I take these longer pieces and I place them on my scoreboard, and I score 1/2 inch from each end, and this is along the 6.5 inch side. So I score at 1/2 inch and at 6 inches. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my brown cardstock. But for now, I'm just going to finish assembling these orange pages. So take your long piece and you just fold it up at the score lines. Then you apply some 2-sided tape along the seams. So now the shorter piece will attach over like that. So just position that, make sure it's nice and straight. Lift up a corner and I can peel back the 2-sided tape. And I attach. So there's my first pocket page. So make your pages. There's 6 in total. My pages are done, and when I put them in the album, I'm going to stagger the colors. So I've got orange, brown, orange, brown, orange, brown, like that. So put your sheets in order, and now we're going to make the inside elements. I have 2 pockets, 2 corner pockets, and 2 vertical pockets. There's the others. So let's start by making these horizontal pockets, and I've got a little punched border at the top. Now you can either make these out of a thick scrapbook paper, or if you want to, you can make them out of cardstock and then mat them. I'm going to make mine out of cardstock. I'm using this punch. Use whatever punch you have. This is called the Martha Stewart Trellis punch. And the reason I mention it is often people ask me what punches I used in my projects. But go ahead and use the punches you already have. This little mini album is about using leftovers and what you already have on hand. Okay, so I cut my pocket piece. It measures 5 by 3. And I place that on my scoreboard, and I'm going to score at 1/2 inch on the left and 1/2 inch on the right. So that's 1/2 inch and 4.5 inches. Then I flip it around and I'm going to score 1/2 inch from the bottom, like that. Then here along the bottom, I'm going to cut the corners diagonally, and that's going to make it easier to fold the pocket like that. I'm just going to cut in like that, just slightly on a diagonal like that. Now I'm ready to punch my border at the top. You can either punch all the way across if you want, or just punch along the center. I think I'm just going to punch all the way across here. Or no, I'm going to punch just along the center. You can do it either way. So I have a template of my punch, and I'm going to position this on here, and I want it to start here and end here. So I put my template over my cardstock, and then I can slide that in my punch and line it up. So I want to start punching about here. And then I'm going to stop here. So again, I line it up, and you want to make sure it's straight because I'm going to be punching. I've already got holes punched here, and this is going to punch in again, so you want to make sure it's nice and straight. But I want to keep my punch border within my my fold lines. But like I said, you can just punch all the way across and then trim if you want. Okay. I'm missing a punched hole here. I didn't go quite far enough. Okay. So now I'm going to trim these sides. Now if you had punched all the way across, you can either trim at the base of a punch, or you can leave it punched. You can just fold it back anyways. I just wanted this straight edge in the back. There's no real reason for it. Okay, so now I fold the seams under like that and like that. So now I'm going to put some two-sided tape along the top of the seam. And I'm ready to attach it to the first page. So it doesn't really matter which side is the front. I'm going to position that like that. And I think I'll leave a little bit of the orange showing at the bottom. Or maybe not. Yeah, I'll just leave a little border showing. Like that. It's easier to just remove your two-sided tape from one side when you're starting to attach your pocket that way. If you have to rip it apart, it's a lot easier. And there's my first pocket is attached. And later I'm going to mat here, and the matting is going to slide inside the pocket. So make 2 of these pockets. So my pockets are attached to my pages, and these go on page 1 and page number 4. So now I'm going to do page number 2 and page number 5, and these pages have a simple little corner pocket, like that. So I start with a piece of cardstock that measures 3 inches by 3 inches. Again, I'm just using scraps. I place it on my scoreboard and I score 1/2 inch on the left and then 1/2 inch along the bottom. Like that. So I'm going to trim again where the score lines meet, like that, just at a slight angle. And then I can fold up my hinges like that. Now, I'm going to cut this at an angle, so I'll take my trimmer. Make sure your seams are folded up and you position it so that each end is along the cutting line diagonally, like that. Because I'm going to trim from this end to this end. So once it's nice and straight, then hold it in position and lift up your hinges out of the way and trim. So now you've got this perfect little triangle. I'm going to trim off the excess here, but before I do that, because this is a small piece and I'm going to be cutting these at an angle, I'm going to put my 2-sided tape on first and then I'm going to cut. So I'll have tape all the way to the edge of my diagonal. Make sure it's nice and solid when I attach it. Trim off the excess. I just fold that under and cut. I'm going to mat this later, so now I can attach it to my page number 2. So that's going to go like that, and again I think I'll leave a little border showing all around. Lift up a bit of the tape and put this in position. And then I can remove the rest of the tape backing. Like that. So make your little corner pockets and attach them to pages 2 and 5. Here are my corner pieces attached to my pile, to my pages. So now I'm going to make page 3 and page 6, which has this little vertical pocket, and it's made the same as the first pocket that we made, only it's going to be attached along the side, and it's a little bit narrower. When you're working with narrow pieces, sometimes when you punch, your punch might remove a little bit of paper from the top edge. So what you can do is punch and then trim the width. So I've cut my piece to measure 6.5 inches, and this time I'm going to punch all the way across. So I'm just going to center that and punch. Now this end piece here is going to be folded under, so I don't need to punch that. I'm going to be trimming that anyways. Like that. So I take my scoreboard and I'm going to punch at 1/2 inch on each side. Maybe I should have scored before. I would have seen better where to start punching. This is a little bit off. So I'm just going to do it like this. And I'll just trim this one, or fold it so that it's a little bit narrower. Actually, that's not bad. Okay. So I want my middle section to measure 6 inches. And it does. Okay. So now I'm going to trim the height, or the width, so that it measures 2 inches. Place it back on my scoreboard, and I score 1/2 inch from the bottom, or from, actually this is going to be the right side of the pocket. Trim my corners where the score lines meet. Not too much, because you want those angles fairly straight so that you have enough room for your tape. Now here I'm just going to cut this across like that. I'll work on my scoreboard because it's a little bit harder to see this black cardstock when I'm working on a black table. Okay, so I fold my hinges, my seams, up like that, and I apply some two-sided tape. And I attach that to page number 3, like so. And again, when I mat, the matting is going to slide inside the pocket. So go ahead and make your pockets for pages number 3 and number 6. So here are my side pockets. And there's the black one and the green one. Now, each page has a flap that folds out like that, and the flap is attached to the base page. So what I'm going to do is I need 6 of these flaps, and I'm going to match them up with the color of the base page. So I've got 3 orange flaps, and I'm going to have 3 brown flaps. I've already made my orange flaps, and I've attached them. So I'm going to make my brown ones. Now, to make these, each flap measures 4 1/4 wide by 5 1/2 inches tall. So I'm going to start by cutting my paper 5 1/2 inches tall along the 11-inch side. And then I'm going to cut this at 4 1/4. So there's my 2 of the pages. So here's my piece, 5 1/2 and 4 1/4. Now I can cut 3 pages out of one sheet of paper. When I cut my tags, I let the white edge show around. Just show you on a template here. When I cut them, I left a little white edge all around, and I attached it over my flap. If you wanted to, you could just cut at the black edge or the orange edge, and you can adjust the size of your flap to fit your tag. So I'm going to I made my flaps so that they measure the same height as the page, but they could be a little bit smaller if I want my tags to be a bit smaller. I want my tag to be centered, so when I formed the flap on the left here, here's a sample tag. I'm going to want it to be centered top to bottom and left to right with about the same distance on the left and the right, like that. So I'm going to score this at 1/2 inch like that. So that's going to just fit. It'll be a little bit wider at the top and bottom. If you wanted the same width everywhere, you could just score it at 3/4 inches instead. I mean at the 3/8 of an inch, and then you'll have a wider area here and it'll be even all along. So maybe I'll go ahead and do that. There, here's this piece. So instead of 1/2 inch, I will score at 3/8 of an inch. And now, when I put my tag on here, it's going to be pretty even all around. Okay? So then, I'm just going to put some two-sided tape on here. And I'm going to take my page, make sure it's not upside down, flip it over, and that's going to attach like that to the very edge. And I'll have this tiny little gap on the right. And there's my flap. And this will be covered up when I mat. So make your 6 flaps and attach them to the pages. So my flaps are all attached to the back of each page. Each page has a little tag in the side pocket. And I have a little punch border on the edge. And when I attach the pages inside the album, the hinge will stick in about 1/2 inch, so that when you're putting the tag in, it's actually going to be sitting like that inside the page, so that this right border here will show outside the pocket. Now, if your punch, you want the width to be pretty accurate, so if your punch, again, removes a little piece of cardstock at the top when you're cutting, you might want to punch first and then trim to measure the height here. But my punch is pretty good, so I went ahead and I pre-cut my cardstock. I'm going to use my template. And see how many of these little scallops I can get on here. I don't get the full scallop, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to position that like that. So I'll have 1, 2, 3, I'll have 5 scallops in there, and then I'll just trim the little excess off. So this is going to show me where to place it in my punch, like that. Sorry if I'm moving the camera when I'm punching. Okay. I'll try to do it more carefully. Okay. Now I'm just going to remove these little ends. And my tag is done, and that will insert inside my page like that, and I have about ½ inch left for the hinge to go in. And in this album I inked the edges of my tag, and I'm going to do that when I get to the embellishing stage. So go ahead and make your 6 tags. So here are my tags. I want to mention that when you are punching your tags, don't use a punch that has a border that's so thick that you won't have room to put your tag, your other tag in. I'm using these journaling tags to attach to this cardstock tag. Unless you don't want to use a journaling tag, then you can make these whatever width you want. If you don't have a border punch, what you can do instead is use any other punch and make a little pull tab. So I have this punch, and what I can do is just punch a design out like that. And then when you cut your cardstock, cut it to, say, about here, and that would be about 3 5/8. And then what you could do is attach your pull tab so that the whole thing, where it sticks out, will measure the 4 1/8 width. So in other words, it would kind of look like that, and it would measure 4 1/8 across, like that. And you can make a bunch of these pull tabs if you don't want to punch a border. I prefer to finish off and mat all of my pages and tags before I attach them in the album. I find it a lot easier to work that way. So I'm going to mat each of these pages. Because I used cardstock for my pockets, I'm going to mat here. I'm going to mat inside the pocket here. And I will mat my tag, and I'm going to also, here I'm going to use my tags to, my image tags to mat this flap. I'm going to use my scrapbook paper to mat the inside. And then the same thing here, I'm going to use some scrapbook paper here on the page, and then here the same thing on the vertical tag, and my matting will slide inside. Now I don't need to use themed scrapbook paper because my images, in this case I'm using my images, are going to be the theme of my album. So I'm just using some scrap pieces of paper that I think will go with my images. I'm making a Halloween album. This is Halloween set number 2. The one that I've already made here is Halloween set number 1. So I'm going to use paper that's Halloween colored, but it doesn't have to be Halloween themed at all. So let's go ahead and mat the pocket. To do that, I take a piece of scrap paper and I'm going to position it, flip it over, position it over my page. Now this is going to slide inside the pocket, so I only need to cut it about up to here. It doesn't have to be cut all the way down to the bottom because it's going to be hidden anyways. And then here, I'm going to measure, leaving about 1/8 of an inch from the top and the left. Actually, I'm going to eyeball. I'm not even going to measure. And then here, I want to leave 1/8 of an inch over from the right edge. So I trim that off, and I'll just trim that along the bottom. So that's going to slide inside like that and mat my page. So I just need to put some two-sided tape. I like using two-sided tape on the corners. It really holds everything in place. I know it's not going to shift around. I think I want this at the top. So I'm going to put a little bit of two-sided tape here. I don't need to tape the bottom because it's going to be held by the pocket anyways. Then I use my glue stick around the edges and in the center. Now again, because the bottom will slide into the pocket, I don't need to glue all the way down, and that will make it easier to slide it in the pocket. So we'll just do this like that. And then I just position that about 1/8 of an inch from the top. And there we go, the base page is matted. Now for the bottom, I'm going to use this paper. And again, I'm just going to flip this upside down and I'm going to mark so that it measures about 1/8 of an inch. It leaves a little 1/8 of an inch border along each side. See where my measurement was. About here. So this piece, I'm going to put tape on the ends. If you have a tape gun, it goes a lot faster than doing it by hand with the roll. I could have just taped all around this small piece, but habit. Okay, so now I've used my glue gun around the edges and I'm just going to attach this down like that. So the front of my page is matted. So then I will do this with my image for my tags. I'm going to do my cut out my Halloween set tags at the end, so I'm not going to mat this right away. I'm going to go ahead and mat the inside of my pages. And now when I get to this part here, I'm going to measure, to mat this corner, it measures 2.5 inches along the bottom and the right side. And when I mat this little triangle, I want to leave a little border along the edge, a little border of cardstock showing. So I'm going to trim my triangle a little bit smaller. I'm going to cut this so it measures 2 3/8, and that's what I did here. 2 3/8 on each side. Then I position one point up at the top along the score, along the cut line, and then the other one down, straight down, and I can cut like that. Now I can either use this little corner for my other page with the triangle or not. So now this should fit on here, and there we go, and there's a little border going all the way across. So I'm going to glue this down. To mat the base of the page, I just take a piece of paper, I'm going to flip it over, and I insert it inside my corner pocket, and I'm going to make sure it's nice and straight, and I'm going to mark here, have it all the way down to the bottom, and I'm going to mark 1/8 of an inch here, and then same thing on the left side, and then I can trim that. Tape the corners. Now I don't need to tape inside the corner that's going to go in the pocket, because that's going to be held down, and also it'll make it easier to slide in. Put a little bit of glue on there. And I'll keep this corner pocket clear of too much glue so it doesn't get stuck as I slide it in. Okay, so I position that like that. It's a little tricky sometimes because of the glue. Yeah, that's perfect. So there's my page that is matted. Now to mat this page, this is the page just before. When I'm doing the flaps, like I said, I'm going to be cutting out my my images later, so I'm not doing these right now. But I'm going to mat the inside of the flap and the base. And when I'm matting the inside of the flap, I'm just going to go up to 1/8 of an inch just before this crease. So I position my paper like that, 1/8 of an inch away from the crease and the top, and I can mark where to trim my paper. So I'm going to attach that just like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm just going to position that 1/8 of an inch away from the crease, and I'm going to mat the base page. So go ahead and mat your pages, and I'm going to mat the outside of my flap and my tags here after I'm done matting all of the pages.